everybody. Welcome to beautiful, cold Pennsylvania. Our California friends, sorry. A little colder than what we would like. So I got the questions from some friends in the Southeast as to why are we here talking? What do we know about cargo theft and fraud and double brokering? And the answer's kind of a fun one. We get asked about this all the time by our carrier partners, customer partners, and it's become a very hot topic that everybody talks about kind of behind closed doors or in their inner circles. So we've had probably about a dozen conversations like this with shippers that we work with, and we thought that since it is a hot topic, which we'll get into some kind of emerging trends, that it was worth sharing with this group. Because everybody in this audience faces it in one way or another, as a shipper, as a carrier, as a broker. It's happening across the board on all sides. And we figured, why not share what we know, some of the research that we've done. We're heavily involved in some of the TIA events that go on. And from a business perspective, we believe in education and training at the forefront of everything that we do. So we have hopefully what you find to be a knowledgeable overview of this. Please ask questions. Don't feel like you can't raise your hand mid-conversation. We want this to be interactive. We want it to be a dialogue. And as you can tell, right, I'm excited. I'm passionate about it. So passionate that I dove right into it, didn't even introduce myself. So Erik Holck, CEO of Y Logistics. I have Jeff Braun over here, our COO. He's my business partner. We are based out of Clinton, New Jersey, and just actually opened an office in Bethlehem here. So this is home for us. So welcome. Anything you want to add, sir?
I'll just say this impacts me every day, especially right now. I'm going to get into the double brokering and what's going on there. It's almost a full-time job now for me to get my thumb on the pulse on what's going on with double brokering. It impacts, like Erik said, shippers. It's going to impact brokers. It really impacts the carriers first. The third-party warehouses. Erik's going to share a story of a friend of ours that's impacted by it. I haven't figured out lumpers. I don't think it impacts them, and I don't think anyone's going to figure that out.
We got Capstone here.
Oh,
they got to figure it out.
You figure that out. So, but all of us need. Right. That's the business I want. But all of us need to work together with this. It's not a solution that any one party within this segment is going to get solved without all of us together. So this is why Erik and I want to share this topic with the group being represented by everybody within the sector.
We're going to do something a little bit different to start. A little bit of an exercise, not physical activity. You can sit down. But we got a shipment that we got to take care of. So this is what we're going to talk about first. We're going to do a little bit of a kind of role-playing activity. Nobody has to dress up. But we're going to go through this because everybody has faced this as a shipper, as a carrier, as a broker. So this is a situation that we've created, not an actual one that we experienced, but based on what we're going to go over today. We want you to read through this, understand this. We're going to go through a scenario of how this plays out, and then we're going to come back to it later because we want you to see the difference when you look at it from a different lens. So we have a shipment, right, that's given to a broker. At 2 p.m., the asset-based carrier fell off due to rejection. So this shipper then reaches out to their broker community saying, I have a last-minute shipment that came up as a result of a carrier falling off. Going from Bolingbrook, Illinois to Dallas, Texas, right? 60 pallets double stacked, going in, we'll call it Costco, right? Going in there, display pallets. Cargo value $75,000, broker, fake broker, best brokers. In the broker's office, it is 4 p.m. Central Time, end of month, 9/30/2022, and they have a pickup at 8 p.m. at night. What do you think the atmosphere is in that broker's office at that point? End of day, end of month. For those of you on the brokerage side, What's that like? Great answer. Love it. Also crazy for those of you not on the brokerage side. You have to enjoy your hair being on fire to really succeed in the brokerage world. So what happens in a situation like this? You're going to first kind of check with your carrier base, right? Your go-to carriers. They're probably not going to have any capacity, right? Considering we have a carrier market here. What is a carrier market? It's a tight market where carriers have pricing power. So after that, you're going to typically go to your load boards, post that up. There's probably a good chance that, right, the broker involved in this wants to set a good image with the shipper. Could be because there's an RFP going on. There's additional business that they're trying to get from them. So we have contract market rate, spot market rate. Typically, spot markets tend to be lower. And what's going to happen here is that load's going to get posted, right? First call in. Carriers know it's end of month. Carriers know it's late in the afternoon. What's going to happen? First rate they're probably going to hear is what? $4,000. Yep. And then they're going to continue to get calls and calls and calls. And depending on the training program that best brokers have, you may have a carrier sales agent, carrier sales rep, that's not prepared for something like this, that doesn't have all the experience and all the knowledge necessary to vet out the carriers as they're calling in. So they hear 4,000, 3,800, 3,500, 3,800. And now it's starting to get a little bit closer towards the end of the day. Everybody starts sweating a little bit. What then happens next is they're going to start getting calls because the load's been up there for a while, right? Going on an hour now. It's 5 o'clock. Load's still up there. Carriers are calling and asking for higher rates. Then you start getting additional calls in. Now the rate starts getting closer to that 3,100, maybe that 2,800. And then, because the brokerage world is driven by margin, just say the person that gave the rate to the shipper in this gave a rate of $3,000 because the asset-based market rate is 3,100. Some carrier calls in and gives a rate of 2,700. Carrier sales rep books that load. Everything looks good, getting all contact information, getting it figured out, carrier gets dispatched. Last check on that, driver's on site at 8 p.m. for their pickup appointment, get confirmation, 9 p.m., 9:30, that truck is loaded. What happens Monday morning? You think that truck shows up to Costco to deliver? Good chance no. So keep this scenario in mind because we're going to come back to this. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to cover cargo theft at a high level, trends within it, an overview of cargo fraud as it relates to fictitious pickups. We're going to get into double brokering and how it works, and then what we all can do collectively to help ensure that we're minimizing the chance for cargo to be stolen, for anybody to fall victim to this. I'm not going to read this. This is way too long, but this is the FBI definition of cargo theft. If you want to read that, go ahead. Pretty simple, though. I mean, it's any property, any personal property that is being stolen in the course of transportation, whether it's air freight, whether it's over the road, whether it's ocean freight, whatever it is. The FBI estimates that it's costing trucking companies and retailers $15 to $30 billion a year. Now, the next couple slides are going to have information about cargo theft as it relates to quarterly amounts, quarterly values. The numbers don't add up to $15 to $30 billion because the problem is it goes severely underreported, and we'll talk about why that happens. How is this happening? Right, we live in a pretty secure world from the technology standpoint, from the facility standpoint. How is this all going on? Well, good old hard work. If you think about anybody that's on the business development side, you've driven around, you've looked at warehouses, you've looked at shippers, you know what's going on. You're driving by facilities looking for opportunities to prospect. That's exactly what the cargo thieves, we'll call them criminals, are doing, right? They're spending time surveying distribution centers, parking lots, truck stops, wherever they can get some sort of information about what's moving, maybe the value of it. They're using GPS jammers and going in and quickly disabling GPS units within 5 minutes of coming in contact with that trailer. So the chances that all the tracking systems that are working, they may not be. The use of master keys to gain entry to trucks, it happens all the time. Exploiting common industry behavior. This is one that we'll elaborate a little bit more on. The example that we gave before of a 8 p.m. pickup on a Friday end of month, people know that there's a sense of urgency to get that shipment covered. There is a desire to look good and get something moved before the weekend instead of rolling a pickup. They know that a lot of freight moves over the weekend, and they know that the companies that are tracking the freight are not doing the jobs they need to over the weekend to make sure that that freight is continually tracked. They're taking advantage of that. That's their opportunity. 48 hours over the weekend to gain access to cargo and freight without anybody really watching it. Targeting park trailers in unattended areas. So not everybody utilizes secure yards. Not everybody locks their warehouses over the weekend. That's something that has to change in order to help prevent this. We've seen issues where they're switching out license plates. They go somewhere, they check in, and there may not be enough of a security practice at a shipper where they're watching what the driver does as they're loading a truck. So the driver's going outside, and while they're loading a truck, he's switching out license plates on the front, switching MC stickers on the side of the truck. And then the criminals have knowledge of what law enforcement is doing about this to prevent it, to control it. So there's not enough, we'll get into it in other slides, but not enough training, not enough education on this. So why is it happening? Limited awareness and training. Our goal today is hopefully that you guys come away with something you can take back to your teams, maybe something you can implement on one side of this to say, hey, we need heightened attention to this. What else can we do better? What else can we do to protect ourselves? Lack of information and transparency. We tell our shippers what carrier is actually coming in. We give them the MC. We'll tell them the driver name because that is important. That helps fight situations like this from showing up. So if we tell them Jeff's trucking is coming in and Jeff is driving, and it shows up with Troy's trucking, that's a problem. How many people are sharing that level of information? How many people operate with that level of transparency? That's an easy way to go about preventing some of this. Penalties for cargo theft are not.
With the brokerage, so we get so many loads that it's tendered to Jeff's trucking, but then Jeff hires Troy's trucking.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time.
No doubt. But it comes down to communication and how much you're willing to collaborate on it, right? You guys are phenomenal, right? That's why we're friends, right? You guys do a phenomenal job of it where we try to relay as much information as possible. Not everybody operates the same way. And yes, how many loads are you shipping a day?
Hundreds.
So it's hard to keep communication up with that level of volume. But that gets into another point about working with trusted partners, people that you know are going to do the job right.
To touch on that, Troy, too, is I see so many BOLs, and I'm sure all of us do, that say no carrier. No carrier, no carrier, no carrier, or it's the broker listed as the carrier. I'm concerned now with our business is what's the legal ramifications of that when something gets stolen? What's going to happen now if it says no carrier? And we've been in the warehouse section before as well where, right, what's going to happen to the third-party warehouse? Who's responsible for that when they say, well, you loaded the wrong carrier? it's going to get like this, and our industry is already like this most of the time. And that's something that I think we have to figure out and begin to change, where the brokerages need to start communicating the carriers to the third-party warehouses. And it's tough because labor at the warehouses is a challenge. I mean, how are we going to be able to get all that information prior to? Right? Brokerages are going to be shy to sit there and say, hey, here's XYZ trucking that's coming. Here's the contact information, because brokers are always worried about backdooring. Right? I've been in that seat my entire life. But this is why we're having this conversation now, because something is going to have to change if we're going to combat these guys, because this is organized crime. Like, there's no doubt about it. This is organized crime, and they're attacking all our money. And this is why I'm adamant about this, because I worry about my kids and our business and Eric's kids when I say, hey, someone stole a load or someone's double brokering a load and we're out that cash. Because now in the brokerage world, especially in the double brokering front, we're faced with, we have to pay, we already paid the guy that took the load, and now what do we have to do to the actual motor carrier that moved this? And that's what's challenging in this entire situation. So it brings up a good point. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is prevention early on, because I've worked through these situations where we get to the point where it's stolen. It's a mess. You have to deal with state and local authorities. Some of you guys and some of us are working in Canada, working in Mexico. Good luck with that. And there's no real centralized organization. There's some people, and you'll see some graphs that we have that is working towards that and centralizing this information, but it's still a challenge. So the biggest thing that we all can do up front is the prevention piece. And it starts right there with that BOL and the communication with the warehouse, and how do we make that better and more streamlined and more efficient? What do we do there?
So cargo theft penalties, they need to become stricter, right? They're not strict enough now. People are back on the street pretty quick with limited fines. Victims do not report it because they're afraid of brand impact and insurance costs. Insurance costs are a nightmare for everybody, right? Warehouse-wise, broker side, carrier side. If you are a victim of that, what happens as you have incidents? If you have accidents, what happens to your insurance costs on a regular basis? They continue to increase and go up. So people are saying, hey, I'll pay this out of pocket because I don't want to have to file a claim with my insurance company because a load was stolen from me, right? Brand impact. Everybody is scared of that. At the end of the day, I tell everybody this, when everything else goes away, what are you left with? Your reputation. That's why we take this seriously, right? For those of you that know me, that know Jeff, this is how we operate, right? We try to operate with a very high level of integrity. And that is why, because of the brand impact, right? For those of you that saw the truck sitting out at TQL's headquarters on LinkedIn or somewhere, right? Truck parked in front, spray painted on the side, TQL pay me $8,000. All over the place, everywhere, right? Everybody's seeing this. That's brand impact right there. That's the last thing anybody wants to deal with. Ease of access to information, right? Whether it's drivers talking at a truck stop, whether it is an email accidentally being forwarded to the wrong person, people can get information very easily, right? For those of you in business development, you know that. You can find numbers, email addresses for just about anybody that you need to. Same thing happens with cargo, right? Jeff talked about it. It is organized crime. They are using advanced technologies. They are doing everything they can to find out as much information about what's being moved as possible. I will tell you that there are operators out there that are very not advanced, the best way to put it. They're looking for a way to make quick money. They'll go in, they'll hook up to a trailer full of pallets. Pallets will be gone within 2 hours. That's a quick hit. Those guys are not very organized. But the ones that target specific cargo that can be flipped pretty easy, or high value cargo, it's a different story. And then decentralized cargo theft reporting. A lot of what we're going to get into next is data from CargoNet. They seem to be really the only place to really report all this. Unfortunately, at the federal or state level, there's limited spots to report all this, and the information does not get shared the way that it needs to. So major area of improvement there to help educate and also try to deter some of this from happening. Okay, some graphs, some numbers. Cargo theft by years and quarters. So the light blue is 2022. Don't have full 2023 data yet, obviously, not the end of the year, but you can see the increase in it. Most of the activity happens in Q3, Q4. Why do you think that happens? Any guesses?
Retail season.
You got it. Get into peak season. Peak volume is peak opportunity. Days of the week. We talked about this a little bit before. We see about 50% of total cargo theft occurring between really Thursday and Friday, because that is the peak opportunity leading up to the weekend when things are going to be in transit, when there's a greater opportunity for these cargo thieves to find an opportunity, whether it's at a warehouse, whether it's at a parking lot, secured yard, truck stop, to get in and grab the cargo. This is now getting into a little bit more of the details, the fun stuff. It's not just cargo theft, but that seems to make up the majority of what people are targeting. It's a lot harder to get rid of a trailer. It's a lot harder to get rid of a tractor. They just don't disappear. Cargo can easily disappear, especially in the right markets. It's easy to, I'll say, it's easy to get rid of a 53-foot trailer full of food, especially in highly populated areas, right? In inner cities, in specific submarkets, stuff can move very quickly. Up top, you can see a breakdown between the categories of theft, burglary, fictitious pickups, broken seals. I mean, a little bit of everything, but the information that is reported here primarily ties to cargo theft.
Yeah, to tell a story real quick with Erik just mentioned, I read all of the theft reports that come out, as many as I can, to stay up on what's going on. We had one in New Jersey recently, last week, and it was a truckload of, I believe it was games. So obviously someone knew that this is high value, I can flip this, resell it, it's Christmas time, let me see what I can do, put it on eBay. And they got a cross-dock warehouse involved. Cross-dock warehouse had no idea that any theft was going on because he was just a third party to this. And by the way, the cross-dock warehouse got paid. So they picked this load up with a carrier. Carrier picks up the load. The carrier's not involved in the scheme. They get it down to the cross-dock. Cross-dock's not involved with the scheme. Another carrier comes, picks up from the cross-dock, and it's out, and they have no idea where the freight is. So the highly densely populated areas where there's available cross-dock activity, it's easier for these guys to go look and poach, cross-dock this freight out, and get it on the road as quickly as possible. And as we know, once it's out of the road and out of that area, it's tough. Good luck.
And the more degrees of separation you create between, right, different carriers moving the freight, different cross-docks handling the freight, it's just like money laundering. If you think about it, right, it's hard to follow the trail. And that's what a lot of these thieves end up trying to do, is create a trail that's untraceable for where the cargo actually goes. So commodity, right? High value products, things that can easily be flipped, right? Household items, food. The other category is very vague. Unfortunately, data doesn't dive into what that is, but you can see what's targeted. And unfortunately, everybody in this room is dealing in that third category there in food and beverage and are open to the risks associated with that. By location, right? Where is freight stopped? At a warehouse, in a parking lot, in a truck stop. When vehicles are left unattended, unsurveilled, you're opening yourself to risk. We'll get into some information about what people can do a little bit later on, but that is the primary targeted areas. Okay. Where is all this happening? Fun questions, right? Not happening in Montana, in the middle of nowhere. Love Montana, but not a prime target. It's around population centers. Why? Because freight can disappear quickly where there are heavily populated areas. It's also where everybody locates their DCs. So, right, you want to be able to service the consumer base, the customers quickly. Makes sense why you locate DCs there. But it makes it easy for people to go in and target specific areas, whether they're targeting a specific cargo or not. They know, hey, I've got all these warehouses in this proximity. I'm going to figure out who the good operators are that know their stuff and have their facilities and lots locked down. And I'm going to find the fly-by-night guys that I might be able to try to get a quick hit from. Kind of quarterly overviews real quick for you guys. Just want to point out a couple things here. Number of incidents, that's one to pay attention to. This is all reported information. This is not total information because a lot of it goes underreported. But you can look at total value of cargo losses. Number one targeted location, warehouse and distribution centers, then parking lots. Top targeted commodity, food and beverage. Top 3 target states, California, Texas, Illinois. That's for Q1. Q2, California, Texas, Illinois. Food and beverage, warehouses, right? These people know what they're doing. They have a plan for how they're going about this. Q3 information, right? Warehouse, top location. Food and beverage, top commodity. There are trends here. We have to follow the trends. That is what's going to help everybody stay on top of this. Be aware as to what the challenges are. Kind of the highlight from what we talked about here, right? They're chasing cargo. Mostly, they will take equipment if it's opportunistic. Holiday season is peak season for this. Population density drives the high target areas. If you add up the number or the total incidents that are reported between warehouses, truck stops, parking lots, it's 75% of all activity. So that is where we need to increase our attention. We need to increase our training. We need to do a better job of preventing it at these locations. Easy access makes it a better opportunity. You park your trailer in the back of a truck stop against an open field, you have a hell of a lot better shot of having your cargo stolen than if you park in the front. Now, we all know parking is a challenge in truck stops across the board. Unfortunately, not here to talk about that today, but that is something that needs to be improved. High value or easily sold commodities are targeted because if it's high value, it's worth the return. If it's cargo that can easily be flipped, it can disappear real quick with limited traceability. Typically, it's happening towards the end of the day, end of the week, and tight timelines, hot shipments where people are under pressure. People crack under pressure. We all know that, right? We've all been there at one point. That is when mistakes happen. That's where we open ourselves up to more risk. And basic lesson, if you get a low rate on an undesirable lane, it is too good to be true. Do not trust it. Do not take it. Worst thing that you can do. Whether you are a broker getting a low rate from a carrier, or if you're a carrier and you're getting a super high rate from a broker, you have to ask yourself, what is wrong with this, right? And sometimes it could be, it's my last shipment on a Friday, I want to end at 1 o'clock, I'm going to pay you an extra couple $100 to get it moved. Okay, fun stuff. Fictitious pickups.
Tell the story. So I'll tell the SoCal story.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
So we were at
Fancy
Food Show this summer, and one of warehouse partners that we work with that some of you guys know in this room came up to us and he had an issue, and it's something we talked about. And it correlates to YouTube, what actually blew my mind. But they were a warehouse that held Prime energy drink. And I don't know if you guys have children, grandchildren, or anybody that is in the age of, I like Prime energy drink, but this stuff was reselling for $20 a bottle when they first launched it. They're backed by the Paul brothers, who were YouTube fanatics. They blew this brand up, and we're seeing this now more and more where the social media superstars, the influencers, are getting into the CPG world. They're getting co-branded on product. They're blowing this stuff through the roof, and now we have some issues that we have to watch out for. So they warehouse for this product. They have a truck come in. Once again, same situation. Truck gets the pickup number, has it, gets loaded, delivers the freight. The trucker gets paid. 3 days later, they get a call from the broker. The freight never showed up at the warehouse. The customer called the broker, where's the freight? It's not here. Try to get POD, they can't find it. Try to get in touch with the carrier they booked, gone. All right? This is the stuff that's happening. This company is a reputable company. They've been in business for quite a long time, and this has happened to them because this was a high-value product that they make this for pennies on the dollar, too. But because of the launch of this YouTube and the marketing behind it, the value of this was insane at the time. That has since changed with production ramping up. Now you can find it everywhere in stores, but at the time, this stuff was highly valuable. Luckily for them, they found it 5 minutes away down the street at a different cross-dock facility.
Yeah. So this gets into doing the right things. So they had a very secure check-in procedure, right? Getting copies of driver's license, going through, doing all the right things. Loads are disappearing. This is a lesson in collaboration too. Shipper came back, broker came back. They had conversations saying, hey, what can we do to improve it? They came to us as friends saying, hey, here's the issue I'm facing. What can we do? We reviewed the entire check-in process. We said, okay, now go out, validate the MC number on the side of the truck as well, right? Because that was one part of the process that was not happening. So doing that, everything still checks out. They had been using, right, specific pickup numbers to that location that were different from a PO number or sales order. Great differentiator, right? Somehow the carrier was still getting that. What had then happened is they said, okay, we're going to follow this truck out. Right? That's a great next step, a great way to kind of help figure out what's going on in this. That's how they found it 5 minutes down the road. Unfortunately, what did he say about when they went to the police on it? What did the police say?
Not my problem.
Yeah.
That's the challenge with the local authorities is they don't want to get involved. They have other things that they want to work on and focus on. When you report this theft, it is a challenge to get someone involved, which is why we've partnered with CargoNet on that side of things because they seem to have more leverage there with the local authorities to write. But anytime you call the local police department, it's segmented. Once again, this whole conversation about prevention, because once you get to that point, you're in a challenge. You have a challenge, an uphill battle to get someone involved that's actually going to help. So fictitious pickups, once again, it's cargo theft. It involves criminals posing as legitimate truck drivers to steal cargo directly from shippers. It can also be involved with a third party that you have no idea where they are they in the US or they overseas, that is using a legitimate motor carrier to pick up the goods from the shipper and move it to another location. These are crazy criminal schemes. It's a business that they have running. They know what they're doing. It's organized. And they've been doing this for quite some time. And usually it's underreported, right? Because the vetting process of the brokerages, there's a lot of us out there, are not where they need to be. The pickup processes for the third-party warehouses and the warehouses in general, there's a lack of communication there of what's not getting translated over with the actual carrier information and what's getting translated back on who the actual carrier picked up. And the internet, quite honestly, has made a lot of this easier, right? And we'll talk about this in double brokering. Setting up authorities is insanely easy now. And a lot of guys are setting these up in bulk, sitting on them, because as brokers, we said, well, we'll wait. We're not going to do business with anybody for a year. That's our catch. You know, if you haven't done business for a year, we're going to wait. Well, they just grab a bunch of authorities, get set up, and they sit. And they hold them there, and they wait.
And there are also people that don't even set up motor carrier authorities that do this. So if we have Jeff's Trucking, and the email domain is jeff@jeffstrucking.com, what they'll simply do is they will pose as the carrier, right? Provide Jeff's Trucking's MC, and then what they do is they do jeffstrucking@gmail.com. They provide a different email address, right? Entirely separate from what the company actually operates under, and they will run it that way. So, right, everything that's presented to the broker looks factual. They're looking at a good MC, right? Everything looks fine. It's just, hey, I'm not working from the office today. I'm in a different spot. I don't have access to my email, right? And that's one of the simple things, right, that you can do is just say, hey, we're only allowed to send tenders to the emails on file. But it's that simple. As a broker, you can call, right, the main dispatch number and vet that actual dispatcher to make sure that they are involved in the company. We've seen it happen a couple of times, and it's interesting to have the conversation with the carrier where they're like, I don't even know how this is going on. I don't know how they have access to my information. There's databases out there, right? It's easy to find an MC, go to SaferWatch, type in a company name, and figure it out. But people are getting very creative with how they're going about this.
We have softwares verifying IP addresses. I mean, the softwares now are at that level where they're looking at the IP address when you get an email and saying, hey, this is fraudulent, be on the lookout, and they'll block it. I mean, that's the level where we're at with new carrier entries and carrier setups that we had to get to, that we have to look at the internet service provider and get those blocked. So this one is one I'm passionate about because it pisses me off every day that we have to deal with this and what's going on and how much money it's taken out of a lot of people's pockets, quite honestly. And it's changing by the day. It's changing by the day. What these guys are doing is insane. So we just kind of went through the cargo theft background, what's going on there. That's been going on for quite some time. Double brokering is interesting because double brokering has been talked about. It's been in our shipper broker agreements, broker carrier agreements. Hey, you can't double broker, you can't subcontract, you don't interline, whatever. But at the same time, everyone kind of like hey, I had a buddy that can do this lane, he's in the area, I'm going to tender it off to him. That's the old adage of what double brokering was. And then we had the crime guys get involved. And when we talk about double brokering now, it's talking about these crime guys who they're taking loads, they're acting like they're an actual motor carrier, they're taking the loads, and then what they're doing is they're not paying the carrier who actually moved it. They're looking for quick pay, they're looking for any way to get that money quick. Once they get the POD, they're getting paid, they're stiffing the carrier, and then they stiff everybody involved. So that's going to hit, right? The broker gets hit, the motor carrier who moved it gets hit, eventually it's going to go up to the shipper, and now we're in a nightmare. Everyone's pointing fingers back and forth on, hey, what do we do to get this stopped and resolved? The amount of software and money that's now getting dumped into this problem, right, quite honestly upsets me because now we have to worry about this fraud and this crime, and now we have to, additional expense that we have to add to make sure we stop it up front. So we're going to go through this in a couple of things that we see, but basically, what they'll do is they'll grab MC numbers. I had a conversation with one of the carriers that we were using in Northeast Pennsylvania, and unfortunately they were at the point, father was getting older, they wanted to sell the MC number. I gave him a call, talked him through it, had the conversation, and what came of it, she said, I was on a trucking board, I kind of put this out there that we're selling our equipment. Someone came to me and offered me $50,000 for my MC, and I have one truck. And this was a single owner operator with a clean MC, has been in business for years, 20 plus years, and they're getting offered $50,000. I don't want the equipment, I just want the MC number. Because then what they're going to do is they're going to go with this MC number and within a week try to take 10, 15, 20 loads and it pays for itself. That's legitimately what's happening. It used to be, I want to set up a new authority, I'm going to sit on that authority, right? I'm going to get set up with a broker, I'm going to take the load, not pay the carrier, and that was it. Now they have to go, because that's getting found out, I'm going to buy an authority that's already been in use, I'm going to take that authority, and then I'm going to do the same thing, right? So this is getting, just every single day, it's getting crazy. I dove down the rabbit hole this morning to find some more information that I can give to you guys, because this changes daily. Factoring companies, there's fictitious factoring companies being created that they're utilizing, and they're in on the scheme. It's a call center you go to, they act like they're the actual company and they're not. There's fictitious insurance companies that are involved in the scheme. COIs, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, you can go online and get an Accord COI certificate and doctor the entire thing. Edit PDF is insane. So these guys are getting certificates. If you're not validating that COI, you have a problem. You need to be calling the factoring company, validating that. You need to be involved in the COI. And then this happened to me this morning. I go on LinkedIn, make a couple searches to figure out there's something I wanted to see, and I got lists. You're going to see a list here. We got list and list and list. Every single day I get a list of like 40 new MC numbers you got to watch out for. Every single day. It's insane. And I want to look in what's the insurance, because now the insurances are keys. It used to be if the name ended in Yan, you'll see this. This is funny. If a name's in Yan, don't set them up because they're a double broker. If they're out of Glendale, don't set them up. There's a double broker. There's a great Freight Waves article actually on that entire outfit and what they did, and that was the start. Well, they know we're going to figure this out quick, and this is what's going to happen. So now it's, if it's this factoring company, it's a double broker. Now it's led to this. This morning I found an insurance company that's a legitimate insurance company and insures legitimate carriers, one of which is in this room, that now that insurance company is being watched for double brokers because double brokers are known to go through that insurance company. This is it's completely out of hand, right? And it can be stopped up front, once again, with communication, and we tell each other, hey, we're the broker in this, you're the shipper, this is the carrier that's coming in, this is the driver, this is the VIN, this is the truck number, whatever information we have to get across those lines quickly and efficiently to not impact operations, that's going to stop this the quickest, right? But my mind was blown this morning when I went down that rabbit hole and I found out that, a provider in here could now have issues with their insurance, working with other providers, because that's now what the brokers are now into. They're just saying, hey, if you work with this company, insurance company, we can't work with you because there's too much going on. We got issues with carrier setups. Carrier setup, I've been in business for 15 years. I started a new authority for whatever reason. I got out of it. My authority got renewed. Well, you don't have any inspections. We can't set you up. Well, this guy knows more about the trucking industry than the broker he's trying to work with. But now that's the compliance issues that we're getting into because of all the double brokering, the theft that's going on. So if you want to go to the next screen. So,
setting up MCs. If you work through a fraudulent insurance company, it's very cheap. $1,000 to $2,500. If you buy an MC number from somebody, Jeff's number was 50,000 that he threw out there. These are pump and dump type schemes where MCs are active for 3 to 6 months, and then they shut down and go away, walk away with all the money that they collected from the brokers or shippers that paid them, never pay the carriers, and then they're left on the hook. 45 to 60 days and $2,500 to set up an MC number to run through this scheme. Insane. 11-step process, right? They are doing this in waves, 20, 50 MCs a day, in order to find people that are going through this. The easy identifier is carriers without inspections or MC numbers with low miles reported. That's kind of the dead giveaway that you're dealing with some of this.
Well, to go on the no inspection part too, the no inspections, that has now evolved. Once again, they're always going to get to the next step. Then they started getting box trucks, having someone pick up loads, drive around, get inspected, and I have a few inspections because then that's what was the brokers were stopping the authority setups, right? Was the inspections. You don't have any inspections. They heard it over and over again. So now they're getting MCs, they're getting straight trucks, they're running a few loads, they get inspected, and now they have some inspections. They're getting past that. I wanted to throw this on here. Sorry for this being a little granular. I couldn't find a better copy, but this makes sense to an extent, but this baffles my mind a little bit too. So obviously we understand new for hire trucking companies, pandemic levels is going to go up. Everyone's getting in the business, freight's plentiful, we need the capacity, so it's going to go up. And we also understand there's a downward trend now happening with where the economy is, where the freight markets are. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense to me is why this trend line's not resetting back down to these levels, right? A lot of this has to do, I believe, with the double brokering schemes. And a lot of this also has to do with the FMCSA. So I'm heavily involved with the TIA. Unfortunately, now I got to get involved with the TIA PAC, which is the Political Action Committee. I never thought I would get into politics, but we're now at a point where we have to get with the FMCSA to say, hey, what are we doing with these new carrier entries to make sure these guys aren't getting their foot in the door? How are we stopping? It's very much an easy paperwork process to get a new authority. So I was baffled by this because I don't see this trend line going down at a rapid enough fashion for me to get back to these levels. It's still elevated. And a lot of this has to do with the fraud piece.
This is just, Jeff worked through it before, but this is a very specific outline of a situation and what plays out from it. So a real broker has a load for $5,000, tenders the load to a fake carrier for $47.50, so broker makes $250 on a load. The fake broker and the fake carrier operate out of the same office, so the fake carrier, under their brokerage authority, tenders it to the real carrier for $6,000. So now you have a load moving with a real carrier $1,000 over what the broker rate is. And what happens is the customer pays the broker. Broker, probably in a lot of these schemes, it involves quick pay. So 2 days after delivery, broker paid the fake carrier. Or if they're working with a fake factoring company, 30 days later, the broker pays the fake carrier. Now, that fake broker never pays the carrier that actually moved it. And what happens is 30 days from there, because that's standard terms, carrier starts checking back with the fake broker that tendered him the load. Tries calling him. Telephone number's disconnected. Tries emailing, gets bounce backs. Tries doing everything they can to find out, how do I get paid for this load? They have no additional recourse, so they go back to the shipper. Shipper gets a call from the carrier. Carrier's like, hey, I got paid $6,000 for this shipment moving from here to here. Here's a PO, here's a POD, here's all this stuff. Shipper's left asking questions, scratching their head. What happened? I tendered this to this broker. You got to go talk to this broker. Carrier then says, I didn't get it from that broker. I got it from this broker. At the end of the day, the carrier's out because they didn't get paid the $6,000 that they need to do. So they're going to the shipper and the real broker then trying to figure out, hey, what needs to be done? Where does the liability lie there?
Well, it's vicarious liability, right? So it lies back onto the shipper because it was their freight on the truck.
Correct. So, right, the brokers in these cases, they're going to say, hey, I didn't book the load with you, right? Any reputable one will say, hey, like, I'll try to help you out, but it ultimately comes back to the shipper.
Where is the real carrier's onus to check that the broker they're dealing with is a legitimate broker? Why are they never held accountable?
Great question. Because unfortunately, right, the asset-based carriers, what is the percentage in the industry of carriers that are less than 10 trucks versus the larger guys? The 10-truck fleets or individual owner-operators don't have all the resources and typically, right, are not trained on what needs to be done to actually do it. They'll go to their factoring company because most of these smaller fleets or owner-operators work with a factoring company. And if the factoring company, right, has the broker set up and green lights them, they're not asking any more questions, right? So everybody has a responsibility in this process to do their due diligence to make sure that they're working with actual people. There's a new scheme out there to take advantage of brokers where there is a fake customer and a fake carrier being operated at the same office that takes advantage of the actual unsuspecting brokers. Now, that's easy to take care of if you do your due diligence and set up customers properly. But they're trying to take advantage of anybody who's unwilling to do the due diligence, who's unaware of these things that are going on. So, great point. Everybody's got responsibility. So real quick, this is a screenshot of one of the lists that we have of MCs that we will not use. Interesting thing, column A is all Glendale, California. This is where the scheme was really working out for the longest time. You will see motor carrier authorities that are operating out of the same exact address. And then here's a perfect example. CalStar Enterprises, CalStar Freight Management. You have a asset-based authority and you have a brokerage authority operating out of the same exact place. Asset-based authority has, in this case, 7 inspections. So, right, they may get past some people. But this is the importance of staying up on trends in the industry, collaborating with peers in the industry so you have an understanding of what's going on. Coming back to this, right? There are red flags in this shipment, right? Costco pallets, maybe not of interest. There's a lot of corrugate involved in them, so people don't really want that. But you have a late afternoon pickup, you have an end of the day rush, you have an over the weekend transit. Prime opportunity for somebody to come in, pick this load up, drive it down to Texas, move it through a cross dock, have it in Mexico before Monday morning. So as you look at shipments, you have to look at where is the risk? What do I have to do to prevent things like this from happening? Okay, what can everybody do? Build relationships and work towards repeat partners, right? I tell everybody we built our business on relationships, so that's what we're going to continue to do. I would encourage everybody to do the same. Managed transportation, as I talked about, great solution where you kind of continue to work with trusted partners. Working with asset-based carriers direct, great option as well. Get away from the spot markets as much as possible, or limit the number of people that you're dealing with on the spot market.
Don't send it out to 10 brokers.
Yeah.
Please.
Don't BCC 150 brokers in an email looking for the lowest rate. You're gonna set yourself up to fail. Validate you're working with someone that has been in business for at least a year, right? Drove me crazy when we started this because I was on that end of it. But the other point to that is if you know someone personally, right, that allows you to kind of bypass that. Work with people you know, work with people you trust, work with people that you like, but make sure you're not working with new business entrants that really you have no idea who they are. Be willing to collaborate, share as much information as possible. Like we talked about, provide driver names, provide MC numbers, provide cell phone numbers if you can. Document procedures and train staff. I would hope everybody goes back and has at least a conversation with their teams as a result of this conversation. If you, take a second look at training or put together training, even better. But at least have a conversation. Acknowledge it is a problem. Acknowledge that there is training and things that need to be done by all parties here to improve this process. Make sure your business partners know their role. Right? I've been fortunate. I've been on the warehouse side, the asset side, the broker side. So I have no problem going to somebody and saying, hey, warehouse, you need to improve your check-in process, right? Have same thing with asset-based carriers. Hey, you need to work on your driver security procedures. And the last thing is report any incidents that you come across. It's going to help raise awareness. It's going to help, improve the process all around for everybody.
I think we talked about this one a lot, but it's right. This is the big one. We got to be able to communicate MC numbers, VIN numbers, truck trailer numbers, whatever needs to be communicated on who's actually picking up the load and who's supposed to. If they're not that person, we need to stop it there. Stop it before it gets loaded. We don't have any of these hassles, right? So we have to collaborate a little bit more on how to do that. Yard security, right? The one thing I'm also concerned about looking ahead, the nearshoring that's going on in Canada and Mexico. A lot of the cargo theft graphs that you saw are going to start to shift. As you guys get into new buildings and new operations, yard security is going to be something you want to look at. Padlocks in addition to seals, that's something we're doing. We found a new thing that clamps right over the bolts and everything so they can't get a bolt cutter in there. Depending on what you're moving, you have to take a look at that.
So check-in process, right? The most advanced check-in processes out there require recording VIN information. Why is that important? Because if a load is stolen, you have all the proper information needed to report it. At a minimum, there's certain things that you need to do, including, which I'll say really spends a lot of time on the driver side of it, driver name, driver telephone number, copy of license, all that. But depending on what cargo you're handling and how much time you have in a shipping and receiving process, you can try to go to that level of detail where you're recording VIN information. Most of the high-value shippers out there have some level of this built into their check-in process. The question you have to ask yourself is how much time and how many resources can I commit to that? That is a significant ask, a major ask. There's a lot of other things that can be done that are a heck of a lot easier to do than get to that level of information because, face it, how many drivers know the VIN number of their truck, right? How many drivers are switching power units, trailers? Carriers, You guys can probably tell me all this stuff. You know all this stuff already, but quick overview. Know what commodity you're hauling, whether it's a targeted item or not. Try to pre-plan stops. Make sure you're doing it in places that are not a targeted area, that are highly visible. Notify your dispatch if you are stopping. Try to do as much in advance as possible, especially with a empty trailer, Everybody needs to rest, everybody needs to eat, but try to plan your trip out as much as possible. Always walk around the vehicle, do a visual inspection, look for anything that's off, that doesn't look right to you. Again, drive 250 miles after accepting or after being loaded. Always lock your doors, don't leave them open, even if you're at home and you have the space to park a 53. Lock it, please.
Don't do it in Baltimore City.
Yes. Be aware someone seems to be following you, kind of have your head on a swivel. Never, ever, ever talk about destination cargo, right, with anybody other than somebody on your dispatch team, right? Don't do it. Don't talk about it over a CB. Don't talk about it at truck stops, anywhere. People are always listening. People are always paying attention. So that's one way to make sure that information does not get out there. And as you park, try to park with the rear doors up against something, whether it's a light pole, fence, tree, whatever you can. It's going to deter people from going in, right? Number one sign, even in, in all the home safety commercials that you see, is if people don't see that the sign that says, hey, there's a security system here, they're going to give it a shot. Same thing here. You make it hard for them, they're not going to want to go after it. Okay, brokers, carrier vetting. Utilize services to monitor and vet carriers. Train your staff on what they should be looking for all that. Request COIs from the insurance provider and actually call the insurance provider. Don't just say, hey, COI looks good, good enough. Validate that there is an active policy on it. Get driver information, truck information, trailer information. If they work with a factoring company, make sure they're not one of those schemy ones out there. Ask for carrier references and actually call them, right? If we get a call from another broker saying, hey, did you work with this carrier? We're more than happy to answer that question. We hope that you would return the favor. It helps us from an industry perspective eliminate some of the bad actors that are out there. Only send information to registered email addresses for the carriers. We talked about that before. And stay up on industry trends. Procedural, right? Make sure carriers are using GPS tractors, trailers, or cell phone tracking. Confirm driver information, who's actually handling the shipment. Ask driver to confirm the dispatcher name. Make sure that they know each other. Make sure that it's not some scheme out there. Don't share pickup numbers until you actually talk with the driver and dispatch them, right? That's typically you'll get rate confirmations with all the information on there, and as soon as that gets out there, it can be forwarded off to anybody. So try to make sure you have a secure process for that. Provide shipper with carrier name, MC, and driver name. Get constant updates. Don't let loads sit over the weekend. I know everybody wants to party Friday night, but don't, right? Make sure at least somebody's not partying and can check on it. And include security details on the tenders. What does that mean? Right? Try to deter people, right? Say, right, high security shipper, something like that that's going to alert somebody, hey, maybe we don't want to do this. Maybe we're going to send that tender back or reject that load.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.